1, 2. All right, it's your boy Katie Nice, and I'm doing this YouTube basically about how the state of New York destroyed my life. I mean, I know it's quite hard to perceive, like under the circumstances, because that's the way they make it, so they can silence you, so you feel that it's a waste of my time to even speak about certain things. And by the way, I just recently got stabbed up by one of my roommates that recently came out of jail 11 days prior to stabbing me up. And basically, their screening was way off. And it raised a lot of suspicion about a lot of things, but neither here nor there. But the fact is that, all right, when I first came out of jail, like they say I have a problem paying my rent. Okay, I'm a black young child that grew up in the South Bronx. I was being stomped, kicked, cut with glass, bullied out of, girlfriends and stuff like that. They harassed my girlfriends to the point that I had no girlfriends. Unfortunately, my mom was a Jehovah's Witness, and she wouldn't let me bring girls into the house. Whoa, that's a lot of noise upstairs. She wouldn't let me bring girls to the house, so my relationships with ladies was basically cut off. And that's part of my dream. I wanted a lady in my life. You know what I'm saying? I wanted some children, have a good job, work. And I was working at D'Agostino's, Burger King. I worked at Summer Youth in a restaurant, in a cafeteria for free lunch. I did pretty good work. I worked at Superior Messages, delivering downtown. But now, after being incarcerated after 31 years, in which at Comstock I caught sugar diabetes because the water wasn't working. I was eating a lot of food, even junk candy, but I had no water to you got to drink a lot of water, and it's hot. You're not drinking water because the water was coming out the plumbing dark like mud, and they was fixing the pipes at that time, but they didn't give us no substitute. Like, they didn't give us no water to drink or none of that. They just let us be like that with no water to drink or none of it. They didn't bring around no water, and then when they was bringing around ice and stuff like that, the ice, I got sick from the ice. I don't know, I caught a stomach bug from the ice, so it kind of got me off of the ice. But as far as anything else, they messed up my legs while I was incarcerated in 2010. I was diagnosed as a diabetic. My legs was going bad, and by 2018, my legs was worse. And then once I got out of prison, I filed for supplementary Social Security. Now, filing for Social Security, they said that my legs got bad 6 months after I got out of prison, after I was incarcerated. So therefore, they chopped me down. So as far as paying bills, come on, you're not even dealing with the facts. That's another factor right there, in which, you're going to cut down my pay. And then they just, my bike recently got stolen, so it makes it harder for me to get around. I used to get around, and Project Renewal, they don't want to move my washing machine, but they want $500 just to move a washing machine from a moving company. So these are the financial things that I go through. Now you chopping me down, and then you saying I ain't paying no rent. I mean, come on, it's not enough money for one man, and then I deserve more. I wasn't out there selling drugs. I was DJing out in the park, playing music at house parties, and everybody enjoyed themselves, non-violence. I'm not the one that introduced cocaine, crack to your environment. I was working good jobs, and I was doing the right things in the right places at the right time. And I was too legit to quit. And then you chop me down in the time. And the reason why I did go to prison, because I was being abused as a child, growing up until the age of 18 when I got incarcerated in 1991 at the age of 18. I was working jobs and not getting into trouble. And the crack cocaine and the AIDS, the crack made the AIDS more prevalent because ladies would sell their bodies for to support their drug habits, and that's what I fell into. I got ran off the road. Basically, I had girlfriends and stuff like that, but at the same time, the guys around the way would bully them. When they see them by themselves, they would run up to them, and they would even disrespect me in front of them, like, you need to dump that boy, give it a real man. It wasn't no respect. Rodney Dangerfield, I get no respect. then in situation, one thing pushes another thing, and it's like a domino effect. In fact, in which like it caused me to be pushed out there in the street. I was against crack, but still, I'm a man. You know what I'm saying? Growing up in your hood, a lot of people, paid for sex from crackheads or whatever, but that's just a reality. And they said that if it wasn't for crack cocaine, a lot of people wouldn't even have sex. Period. But, and then a situation, like the thought of me being exposed to AIDS and stuff like that, it just caused me to snap and I went to prison. All right, that's an isolated case. That's off on his own. The district attorney refused to acknowledge the other side of the dice. They just wanted to throw a person in jail. That's not what it is. You got to hit the problem, the core problem, the roots of the problem, but they ignored the roots of the problem. All right, and now they want to try to target me, exploit, and manipulate the facts and circumstances of the case to make it seem like I was just a killer. But actually, I was a child that grew up being abused, and it was detrimental to the well-being and welfare of a child, and it actually caused me to snap. But they ignored that for mitigating factors so they could put me in jail for as much time as they could. Now, recently, like that doesn't solve the problem, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, you know what I'm saying, now I just got, guys that came home from prison just stabbed me up with a knife, and I did nothing to him, but he just out of nowhere just started swinging a knife at me. Just because the justice system is so torn and broken apart, is so much injustice. But they destroyed my life. Now I can't, like one thing lead to another. Like I was working at the time. Now I would have had enough work credit, so even if I did become, with a disability, I would have had enough work credit to get more money than what I'm getting now because I had 10 points. Come on, man. A man working, not selling drugs and getting 10 points work, for as far as Social Security and the workers' disability and retirement and all that. I was well on my way. So now it's not even that. I can't even get that nowadays. And then they're going to still shorten me by saying that I became handicapped, or my disability started 6 months after my incarceration, which is not true, just to shorten me money. And the thing is, I'm poor. This is how they do us, from the poor neighborhoods and stuff like that. But the state of New York basically destroyed my life significantly. My hands is messed up. I can't use my hands. And now that I got stabbed up in my arm, it's harder for me to even use that arm because it hurts, it's swollen and stuff like that. And I got medical treatment and everything. And I don't know, it's crazy, but they really destroyed my life. Another factor is that at the age of 14, I was working for Burger King, but I got forcibly arrested for robbing Burger King on 149th Street and near 3rd Avenue, but by court off of, I think, Cortland Avenue, on Cortland Avenue, and the Burger King over there. But I was working at Burger King downtown in Manhattan on 33rd Street and 3rd Avenue. And the thing is, I was at work at the reported time that Burger King on 149th Street and Cortland Avenue was reported to be robbed. So, but they still put me through the ordeal and the trials and tribulations of going before the grand jury, which I had to bring witnesses. The time clock revealed that I was at work at the time and everything. But come on, that is not something that a child at the age of 14 should go through. So they contributed to me, snapping as a youth, but they ignored this stuff. And another factor is at the age of 18. All right, thank you. Take it easy. So at the age of 18, I was driving on Hunts Point. The police pulled me over and said someone reported that I had a pistol in the car, a gun in the car. So they searched my car, finds no pistol. Now they tell me to walk a straight line. Then they take me into the precinct and give me a breathalyzer test or whatever and say that I'm 1 point away from not being intoxicated. So they give me now what happens is the trial, my attorney asks me, what do you want to do? Do you want to pay a $250 fine or spend 15 days in prison? So now, all right, so they railroaded me, but he never told me that someone giving an anonymous tip that someone has a pistol in their car is not probable cause of reasonable suspicion to pull somebody over and frisk them. So they violated my rights on that too. And then I paid the $250 fine because I'm 18 years old. I'm driving. I'm too legit. I'm legit. I got my license, my registrations, everything. But what they was set out to do is just to kick a young man down, and which it worked. And now a young man is sitting incarcerated for 31 years for killing somebody because you caused the young man to snap. But that was just another factor, that this happened in the Bronx and everything. But thank y'all, and